In part one, you saw how I finished off the sole and cleaned the cheeks up. In part two, what I do is pull it all apart, clean all the pieces up, and make sure everything's there. So please enjoy part two, and in part three, I'll put it all together and we'll tune it up and use it. Now that's the hard part over and done with. Now pull the plane apart. And what I'll do first is just have a look at the back of the blade, which actually that's not too bad either. Let me get my specs on. Might just give it a bit of a rub on the 400 to see what it's like. I would say they've tried to flatten this on an electric grinder. You can see the grinding marks there. And look, that's all I used to use was electric grinders until I got onto Tormix. It's not a huge thing, but when you do heat a blade up with an electric grinder, you do change the temper. And also sometimes when you're doing your primary bevel here, you get bluing on the corners and that becomes brittle and it chips a lot easier. So that's why I stick with Tormix now. It's water cooled and it does a good job, but more about that later. No, that's all right, I'll live with that. Same with the chip breaker. That's got a lot of rust and what have you on it there, so I'll just go back, get a little bit of that 120 I was using before, clean that up. Same as timber, I guess. I like going with the grain of the metal rather than going across the grain. Doesn't make as much difference in the metal as it does in timber, but aesthetically it still looks nice if you don't have scratches going across it. The most important part of the chip breaker is this little face along here. We have to make sure that it's dead flat and even and square. If not, you'll tend to get shavings jam under it when you're using the plane. I've got a nice sharp line going all the way along there, so when it contacts the back of the blade, it's going to give a good seal so that the shavings can curl off and not get clogged. The cap iron, I'm actually going to use steel wool on that because I don't really want to take any of the chrome off. So just ordinary steel wool. I think this is about grade 2. And there you go, that only took a couple of seconds and it's come up quite nice. All right, now we can pull it apart. Get the frog out. I don't know how true it is, but the legend of the frog in the plane, from what I've heard, in the factory when the workers used to put it in, they used to say, well, it's got to go in the throat, and I've got a frog in the throat, so it became a frog in the throat of the plane. How true, I don't know, but I think it's a great urban legend, if that is true. Give the lateral lever a bit of a work around. If you've got WD-40 or Inox 3-in-1, RP7, anything like that. I said this is going all right with just Kara. Spin the adjustment wheel off. Remember it's the left-hand thread. Bit of Kara, bit of steel wool, just clean all in there. And just have a look at the base of the frog, make sure that the plates are nice and clean and flat, no great big lumps of rust or nicks out of them. Take the screw out. Just this lateral lever too, I'm going to knock it with a bit of steel wool just to get that rust off. Looks all right. Any of the screws that are around, I just pull them out and just give them a quick clean as well. And if there's any little bits of rust, just again a little bit of steel wool. Now where the last bit went. Just give it a rub. All right, let's get the handles off. Now give the body a good going over. You use steel wool or wire, not a wire brush, a nylon brush. I really don't approve of sandblasting these. Actually do have a sandblaster out there, but all the black japanning comes off, and then I've seen people try and respray them with enamel, and they just don't look the same. So I like to keep it as authentic as possible. Put them all back together. Well, that's a good place to leave it for part 2. All the pieces are pulled together and cleaned up and ready to go back together. So I look forward to having your company at the bench in part 3. When it all goes together, we tune it up and see if it works.